So let's talk about the TMS updates. So a couple of things from the point of view of the TMS. Okay, so over the last couple of lab developer workshops, we have spoke about the Instructor Dashboard. And if you remember from the last lab developer workshop, we discussed the fact that the lab developer the dashboard, you sort of had to know the link, basically. So it was not difficult, but ultimately, if you didn't know about the link, you didn't know where the dashboard was. We didn't make it obvious. It was what we would generally regard as being a bit of a soft release. So what we've now done with respect to the just going to go over here. TMS is it's now going to actually go in as a link on the menu bar. Okay, I'm trying to find actually, just get the correct browser actually. Just bear with me for a second. Just get the correct browser. Otherwise, I'll never remember the URL. Drag that across. So it's not quite gone into production yet. Okay, but if I come into here, so this is our UAT platform for it. You'll see that we're now getting the little menu bar, okay, where you'll actually be able to then sort of jump straight to it, okay? So it will be sort of a bit more front and center rather than having to know the URL, okay? So there's now going to be this new My Dashboard appear on the menu bar, effectively for instructors, okay? So that's the first change. The second thing that's changing with respect to the Instructor Dashboard is this will be something that can be set for your TMS site. So if you wanted to switch your instructor so they use the new Instructor Dashboard as their default landing page, then that can be switched in the configuration, okay? So a couple of things that are really important for yourselves. Well, one thing that's really important for yourselves, we are not changing any customers automatically, okay? So effectively, if you've got the ability to edit your site, we'll show you where the option is in a moment, you can do it yourself. If you haven't, place a support call and we can flick the option for you, okay? So existing instructors, other than the new menu option on the menu bar, their experience will not change. It will be exactly the same as it was 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, and so on, okay? For new customers, we will be enabling the new Instructor Dashboard as the default landing page for when instructors sign into the platform. Okay, so just to be aware of that, and I'll show you where the settings are controlled in a moment. The second sort of change to the TMS, which might be important if you use the TMS and you do self-paced learning, self-study learning with the use of subscription keys. Okay, so in the past, when you created subscription keys that you would give out to your users, you didn't have to apply an expiry date to them. Okay, so effectively you could left the keys so they had an endless date from the point of view of an expiry. Okay, so you didn't have to, you could have picked up a key from 2 years ago and it would have still worked to enroll somebody into a subscription. Okay, that's no longer the case. When you actually create new subscription keys, they have to have an expiry date. We're setting the expiry date to a default of 1 year, but you can change that option. So you can go in there and change the date. But what's really important, if you use our TMS for self-paced learning, okay, if you have got sets of subscription keys which have got an which you've created with no expiry date, they are being set to have a 1 year date. Okay, so they would have actually had an expiry date applied, or will get an expiry date applied to them when this update gets rolled out. Okay, so bear that in mind. So they'll get a 1 year date added to them. Okay, so a couple of things in the UI, just to sort of show that. So this is obviously the My Dashboard page, which I've obviously shown you. I can't show you the landing page information just purely because I don't have access to that in UAT environment. So the idea is if you edit your site or get us to edit your site, there's effectively 3 options in there. Okay, there's an option that says if you're an instructor, what's the default landing page for an instructor. So you've got, it's not set, which means it just puts you on the tile page. Okay, you've got custom URL, so you could put a custom URL in there, which could of course do things like place the instructor in their calendar, for example, when they first sign in. And there's a third option in that drop down box, which is my dashboard. So effectively, if you hit the little arrow, it sort of looks like that, Instructor Dashboard. Okay, remember this is a site-wide setting, so this is something that will impact all instructors. Now, it is possible you could have instructors that are also administrators of the TMS. I used to be, at my previous company, I was an operations manager and an instructor. Okay, so technically you could have a specific instructor default landing page. So again, not set would be, it will put you on the tile page, or you could effectively have custom, and you could specify the URL that you want to put the administrator into. So if you've got these options set, what actually happens from a priority point of view? So if I'm an instructor and it's set to Instructor Dashboard and administrator is set to custom URL, for example, what happens to me as an instructor that's also an administrator? Well, the order of precedence is effectively 1. We will do whatever the instructor does. So if the instructor is set to Instructor Dashboard or custom, we will follow that rule. Only if it's not set would we go on to priority 2, which would be the administrator default landing page. And if that's set to not set, we would then go to option 3, which would be the default landing page, which effectively would just be the tiled screen. Okay, so just to bear that in mind. But remember, these are site-wide, so you can't sort of set the instructor default landing page to different values for different users. Okay. And on the subscription keys page, just to sort of show you that, in the fact that the only visual difference you'll notice is on this page before, when you did create subscription keys, there wasn't an asterisk there. So basically this was an optional field and the expires box was empty. So you didn't have to put a date in there. Okay, so now you'll see there's a little asterisk which tells you it's a compulsory field. So a date has to be entered. And by default, we put 1 year from the day you're filling this in. Okay, but of course you can go in there and edit it and set it to a different value. Okay. So last little thing in terms of the updates for the TMS, and I appreciate this would only apply to TMS operations managers. Okay, is again we've added some new capability when people are actually assigning subscriptions to users effectively. One of the problems was sometimes an operations manager might actually assign the wrong subscription to a user and then need to sort of remove or cancel that subscription. And the operations manager didn't have the ability to do that, and they would have to place support calls and so on and so forth. Okay, so we've now actually added this in as a capability so that if you've got the edit subscription permission, you can actually cancel a subscription against a user. Okay, however, there are a couple of rules for this to work. So the first thing is the user must not have launched a lab from that subscription that you want to cancel. If they've launched a lab from that subscription, effectively that means that they're keeping that subscription, and effectively there's going to be a charge for that. The second requirement is effectively the allocation of the user to the subscription must have happened within the last 24 hours. So we're sort of doing that. Oh, you've made you've got 2 subscriptions that have got similar names. You've picked the wrong one, you've added it in, you've saved it, I've realized I've just got the wrong one. I'm going to need to just go and cancel that and create the correct one. So it's designed to sort of fix that type of scenario. Okay, so just bear that in mind. The last thing I'd like to say about the TMS, and it's really good that we've got Bev on the call, is actually we're going to be reinstating, so they did happen occasionally before, the TMS workshops. So like we have the lab developer workshops, we're going to now have TMS workshops. Okay, so first and foremost, that means the TMS content will be dropping out of here. Okay, so we'll focus on Skillable Studio only. Okay, the second thing about this is, the TMS is going to get its, dedicated time slot. So this is going to be generally 90 minutes, and it's going to be on the first Thursday of the month. So the idea here is features get released at the end of the month, so the last week of the month, and then we'll have some training potentially on those new features straight afterwards. Okay, so it does depend what the features are and so on.